It's always weird getting sad over the death of an artist. You never knew them personally, so logic dictates you shouldn't get that broken up about them dying. But you really connected with their art, so when they're gone, it still stings. Doesn't really make sense literally, but it does make sense emotionally. For me, David Lynch's passing was one of those moments. Lynch was one of those rare directors whose work felt like it was reaching into your subconscious, sometimes to terrify, sometimes to make you laugh, sometimes to hit emotions you didn't even have the words for. So this Spooktober, I knew exactly what I had to do: revisit Lynch's most famous and celebrated project, Twin Peaks. Back in the early 90s, Twin Peaks wasn't just a show, it was an event. Millions of viewers tuned in every week to try to get an answer to the question that was on everybody's lips: who killed Laura Palmer? It was a massive cultural moment, and for a lot of people, it was their first taste of Lynch's dreamlike, offbeat style. It shouldn't come as a surprise then that this show has a huge legacy across all kinds of mediums. Without Twin Peaks, you don't get shows like True Detective or Fringe. You don't get cartoons like Gravity Falls or Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. And you don't get video games like Alan Wake or Deadly Premonition. Basically, if you see a story involving a small town where weird supernatural stuff goes on, odds are it's inspired by Twin Peaks. Fun fact, Alex Hirsch, creator of Gravity Falls, apparently even asked Lynch to voice Bill Cipher in the series. He said no, but said yes to a cameo on Family Guy. Who knows how this guy's mind worked? But all that talk of influence is secondary. What matters is the show itself, namely, what is it actually about? Twin Peaks kicks off with one of the most haunting opening hooks in TV history. Logger Pete Martell heads out to do some fishing and instead finds the body of local high schooler Laura Palmer wrapped in plastic.
She's dead. Wrapped in plastic.
At the same time, another girl, Ronette Pulaski, is found injured near the train tracks and goes into a coma. The shock of Laura's murder rattles the entire town, and soon FBI agent Dale Cooper arrives to investigate, convinced that Laura and Ronette are the newest victims of a serial killer he's been chasing. What follows is part murder mystery, part supernatural horror, part melodrama, and entirely unlike anything else on television at the time. And right away, what stands out is the town itself. Twin Peaks isn't just a backdrop, it's a character in its own right. Every diner, every sawmill, every back road feels like it has its secrets. You couldn't set this story in New York or Vegas and get the same effect. Lynch and co-creator Mark Frost poured so much small-town Americana into this place. The coffee and cherry pie at the Double R Diner, the local gossip at the sheriff's office, even the high school drama at Laura's school. As Cooper himself says, this is a place where a yellow light means slow down, not speed up. The show loves small-town life, but it also shows the darkness that lurks right underneath it. And speaking of Cooper, he's the heart of the series, named after D.B. Cooper and played to perfection by Paul Atreides himself, Kyle MacLachlan. Cooper is sharp, brave, and almost impossibly good-hearted. He avoids every trap that bad male characters fall into these days. He's not some totally incompetent moron who gets sidelined by a girl boss. He's not some pseudo-intellectual edgelord anti-hero. And he's not a boring blank slate. He's genuinely competent at his job, but also delightfully weird. Obsessed with coffee, dictating to his tape recorder, getting excited about trees. He's like Sherlock Holmes if Sherlock Holmes was a fun person to be around. Honestly, he might be my favorite TV show lead ever. It helps that he's, literally me. But the magic of Twin Peaks isn't just Cooper. The show has one of the biggest ensembles in TV history, and somehow almost all of them are memorable. There's Sheriff Harry S. Truman, yes, that's really his name, Norma at the Double R Diner, the mysterious log lady, the scheming Horn family, Laura's friends, Donna and James, the list goes on. Some are funny, some are tragic, and some are just plain bizarre. Sure, at least part of how memorable the female characters are is that Lynch cast some absolutely drop-dead gorgeous actresses, but a large part of it is also due to the writing. That said, while the writing is great, it is not conventional. Lynch and Frost don't hand you everything on a platter. As an analogy, if this show wants to tell you 4, it doesn't just say 4, it says 2 plus 2 and expects you to get it. It also genuinely subverts your expectations, not in a pretentious, bet you didn't see that coming way, but in a way that adds depth and complexity to the show. Some storylines look silly at first, but turn devastating later. Some characters you think you're gonna hate, but you end up loving. And just be warned that some plot threads never get neatly resolved. There's a ton of stuff you're just expected to infer and interpret. This whole thing comes back to how Lynch approached storytelling. He famously said that he tried to pull ideas from his subconscious through meditation, dreams, intuition, and when he put something on screen, he didn't really care to explain it. Sometimes that meant shocking violence, other times heartbreaking sincerity, sometimes it meant a talking log, but it's always 100% Lynch. Which is why it bugs me when people reduce Twin Peaks to a parody of soap operas. Sure, it borrows some soap tropes, melodrama, love triangles, heightened emotions, but that's just one flavor in a much bigger recipe. The show is tragic, hilarious, terrifying, and sometimes incredibly romantic. It's about grief, community, corruption, and also about owls that may or may not be what they seem. Try boiling all of that down to a single sentence. The show's overarching point isn't something that can be easily verbalized, let alone analyzed, so I'm not even gonna try it. Of course, none of this would work without the show's presentation. The cinematography captures that eerie Pacific Northwest beauty, lush forests, misty mountains, but also morphs into surreal nightmare imagery when the story demands it. And then there's the soundtrack. Angelo Badalamenti's score is genuinely iconic. The song Falling is one of the most famous TV openings of all time. Laura's theme is absolutely heartbreaking. The music elevates everything. The scares hit harder, the romance feels sweeter, the grief cuts deeper, and if you want even more of it, the band Shoo Shoo did a full album of covers that's worth checking out. So at this point, you might be thinking, wow, so this is like the perfect show or something? Well, not exactly. Here's the problem. Season 2. The original plan was to have it so Laura's murder only got resolved at the end of the series, with the mystery serving as the sort of narrative engine driving the story forward. It makes sense to me. This isn't CSI. I'm not expecting Cooper and Harry to solve a different crime every episode. But evidently, the network didn't see it that way, and they forced Lynch to reveal the killer sooner than intended. Not even at the end of the season, when it would have been the most impactful, but about halfway through. Yeah, I don't get it either. This decision killed the series' forward momentum, and worse, Lynch himself walked away in frustration. What followed was a long stretch where the show basically lost the plot. One character had an amnesia subplot that I think was supposed to be funny. Cooper had an arch nemesis that we never even heard of before. James wandered into the world's dullest side story. For many fans, this is the show's lowest point. Now, there are still fantastic episodes in Season 2, and when Lynch returned for the final 2 episodes, he delivered one of the most haunting finales in TV history. But if you want my advice, I say Season 1 is great from start to finish, watch the whole thing, but you might want to consider using an episode guide for Season 2 and just skipping the lame episodes. Even the presence of the great Billy Zane isn't enough to save them. Matter of fact, I'll leave the episode guide on this video's description. I promise you're not missing out on much. Still, even with its flaws, Twin Peaks is unlike anything else. Other creators have borrowed its DNA, but none have quite managed to capture that same feeling. Twin Peaks feels like a dream, or sometimes a nightmare. Things don't always make sense literally, but they do make sense emotionally. They hit you somewhere deeper. That's why people still talk about it decades later. It's not for everyone, but if it is for you, it might just become one of your favorite shows of all time. And honestly, there's no better way to spend a spooky October than wandering into the strange little town of Twin Peaks, drinking some, excuse me, damn fine coffee, and remembering that the owls are not what they seem. That's it for now, but what about you guys? Are you a fan of Twin Peaks? What's your favorite Lynch project? Drop your thoughts below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Because for the next stop on our Halloween marathon, we're leaving the Pacific Northwest and heading into the world of famed writer Robert E. Howard. No, we're not talking about Conan the Barbarian, but Howard's dark, 17th century monster hunter himself, Solomon Kane. See you there.